Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Demler, and I'll be presenting MTI Offshoring for EMIS 8356 at the Bobby B. Law School of Business at Southern Methodist University. MTI is a $365 million manufacturer and distributor of electronic circuit boards with a headquarters based here in the U.S. They're a combination of two existing entities, MITech and DB Concepts, and we saw that merger and acquisition take place in case two. Funding for the M&A was provided by Bow Summit Capitals with an injection of cash of $125 million US. The combined entity again has $365 million in annual US revenue. Their headquarters is located in Chicago, but they do have operations in the US, Ireland, the United Kingdom, India, and China. They have an IT headcount of 75 personnel, the majority of which are based in the US. Their current forecasted IT budget for the year is $15.6 million. Forecasted IT budget is 4.2% of total revenue. MTI has standardized across all of their locations with some very high-end technology from Sun Oracle, Cisco, Salesforce.com, HP, and Microsoft. MTI has forecasted a 15 to 20% year-over-year growth in their new North America market, a 10% year-over-year growth in China, and low growth in the single digits in the UK over the next 2 to 3 years. It's MTI's hope that with enough financial discipline and some repayment of debt, that they'll be able to be in a position to acquire another company in about 3 to 4 years' time. Taking a look at our analysis, based on $365 million in revenue, an SGA 15.6 million is about 4.2% of revenue, and this is above industry standard. We want to try to get that down. Two largest cost drivers for MTI are staff salaries and hardware, which constitute over 70% of the total IT spend. With headcount at about 75 out of a total of about 745 FTE, we're sitting right at about 10% of the workforce, which is ideal for an organization of this size. The structure that they've put in place is actually very straightforward and really does meet the company's needs. IT salaries of 5.15 million. If we divide that by the 75 employees that are out there, that gives us a blended cost of about $69,000 per staff member. I'll put a note in there that since we weren't given an actual cost sheet line by line for each of the employees, we actually had to go with a blended cost. With heavy legacy costs from DB Concepts, we saw that adoption where they did the hardware and software upgrades to those real tier one vendors. That's hampered the ability of the IT department to lower their cost except in the staffing budget. The remainder of budgetary items do seem to be in line with industry standards. With MTI's facilities in India, China, Ireland, and UK, there is the opportunity presented to decentralize this IT workforce and take advantage of a lower cost staffing model with little to no increase in ancillary costs such as rent, telecom, or travel. Taking a look at our org chart, we actually have a very straightforward organization. Again, it's about 75 employees with a CIO at top, and there are 5 administrative staff positions, 2 of which are managers, 3 of which are admin assistants. And then the remaining staff is actually broken down into 4 different silos. We have the application department with developer, QA, and then architecture and PM. The ops department, which has network, server, and application support. Desktop, which considers desktop support and then help desk support. And then security, we do have a chief security officer and we do have 4 security engineers. Taking a look, we wanted to evaluate the location of staff. The existing staff is really US centric. And even though they are meeting the needs of the company, their costs are very high. So we're going to take a look at the 4 locations that we already do have facilities in order to evaluate them for the merits and risks that they have and see if there's any mitigation we can take. So let's start at the top. We have China, which has the lowest cost of all 4 locations. It does have a well-educated labor pool, and it does have the largest IT presence for MTI outside the US. MTI is keeping 2 help desks or 2 desktop and 2 server support people there to work in their Chinese manufacturing facility. Some of the risks that we do have with China is a language barrier. We do see since English is not a native language, there are some language issues that we have there. Unpredictable cost increases. We saw that with some high growth year over year in our manufacturing facility in Shenzhen. And we do have an indifferent government. They're not actually courting us. And we do have a poor time distance. They are about halfway around the world from our headquarters, which is in Central Standard Time. In India, we have the second lowest labor cost. We have a very large, well-educated labor pool, a low language barrier with English as a common second language. Some of the risks, we do have a poor time distance. Again, they are 12 to 13 hours ahead of us. And the infrastructure is not up to Western par. And that can either be in transportation, clogged roads, low public transportation to get workers into the office, and poor power grid, and sometimes poor network connectivity back to the US or Europe. Ireland actually does have a low language barrier. They do have English as their first language there. It does have a highly skilled workforce and does have a history of quality. The risks there is it's about an equivalent cost to staffing here in the U.S. and it is a low labor pool. It's not that populous of a country, so you're going to be fighting over the best talent there. In the UK, again, low language barrier. They did invent the English language. They have a highly skilled workforce. They do have a history of quality, and they do have a large labor force in which we can choose from. The risks there are a high cost. Taking a look at mitigation for each of them, in China, we can evaluate positions for China for non-customer facing, for positions that maybe would take place during a second shift comparative to the US, and for positions that are not time sensitive. Moving on to India, again, it has poor time distance. This could be mitigated with having multiple shifts. India does have a history of supporting US daytime hours with large call centers that are based there. And we could work on our facilities shortcoming by outfitting them with redundancy either through power or networking, things like that. In Ireland, really the only mitigation we can have is to pay above the market rate to secure top talent. With that, that would probably bring the cost above U.S. salaries, and we don't know if that actually would be a good value for us at this time. And then in the UK, with the salaries being the highest, even salaries higher than the U.S., really the only mitigation we could do would be to either reduce the staff or at least keep the staff at a minimum in the UK. Taking a look at our 2x2 matrix, what we're going to be evaluating is quality and cost. So with your lower left-hand box, that would be low quality, low cost, and the upper right one being high quality, high cost. And then the size of the circle, you'll see each of them labeled with the country that they're representing. The size of the circle is really going to be reflecting the size of the labor pool. So China, low quality. Quality we're going to say is perceived quality of work plus language plus time zone. Low quality and a smaller workforce than what we could find in other countries. India, again, low cost, but we have a higher quality. Not so much of a language barrier, and the quality of work is perceived to be higher. Moving on to Ireland, high quality, high cost. The cost is going to be on par with the U.S. But as you can see, that circle is much smaller, reflecting that smaller labor pool. And lastly, we have the UK, highest quality, highest cost, and that's why you'll see it and with a large labor pool, and that's why you'll see it in that upper right-hand corner. Going on to recommendations, we really feel that a mixed IT staff model across the existing MTI sites will allow us to increase coverage while reining in cost. Migrating specific jobs to facilities with a low cost of living will free up funds for investor payments. And while dispersing the staff across the globe allows for the company to have a follow the sun support model. This is important as we're now going to be more of a global company than when we started out as just MyTech, which had a very US based workforce. What we're going to do to mitigate these costs is we're going to move non-customer facing positions to areas with low cost, but things such as high language barriers. That's going to mitigate it as the day-to-day conversation, either between internal or external customers, will be set to a minimum. The other thing we can do is we can set our non-time sensitive positions to areas of low cost but poor time difference. Again, this is a good move for China. China's low cost really is great, but we have poor language and time zones. And what we're saying is that are going to be appropriate for things such as security, application development, and quality assurance. These positions are only internal, limited work, spoken work with other countries, and they can be done at an off time or can be handed off from one time zone to another. India, we're also going to utilize its low cost, but the great thing there is that it's good language skills, as they do have English as that common language. And we're going to put those more towards those customer facing positions. So we're going to be able to relocate our help desk there. We're going to be able to move our vendor manager there, and we're going to be able to move our telecom manager there. Again, the English language is well spoken. They can work with parties, either internal or external, and still be able to be understood and still getting that low cost. We're actually not going to add any positions to Ireland or the UK. We'll leave the existing desktop staff members there, but we won't be adding more staff. The desktop is really the outlier here. That group will actually not won't make any changes at all because those are so region specific that we need to keep those business offices supportive. We are assuming that no business offices will be closed and no other change to manufacturing facilities. Last thing I'd like to point out is that we're actually going to move the entire help desk to India. What that's going to do is we'll be able to make either multiple shifts so that we can spread that out during the day and support that global workforce again. India does have a history of working odd shift hours because they are supporting many different countries that speak English or some other language around the globe. So it's not uncommon to see workers starting and stopping at odd times. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. We're going to take a look now at the financing for this. The projected cost for staffing can be lowered from 5.15 million to 3.55 million just by moving that staff around the globe. That's a reduction of 31%, which is a good number that we're going ahead and being fiduciary, having the fiduciary responsibility to lower that while we're not lowering our cost, lowering our quality, and that we're actually getting more coverage out of it. Adding that up, we actually lower our IT budget from 15.6 million to 13.9 million. That's a reduction in 11%. And that number will give us a $1.7 million additional that can be reallocated to repayment of our debt holders. Percentage of revenue spent on IT is being lowered from 4.2% to 3.8%. This puts us more in line with industry standards. Our IT support coverage is now global and more closely aligns with the business. And we have mitigated things for items such as time zone, language, and skill set so that we can balance cost with quality and ultimately support the business. Really what these numbers are going to do is increase our ability to pay back our debt holders, and it's going to put us in a much better position for percentage of spend to put us more in line with the rest of the industry. So in closing, MTI is well positioned to take advantage of existing locales in order to provide greater coverage and lower IT staffing costs. We're going to be using existing facilities to stand up a new support structure for MTI's new worldwide operation. This should keep ancillary costs such as rent and telecom and things like that static, but while lowering that staffing cost. Our staffing cost again will be dropped from 5.15 million to 3.55 million, and that's a reduction of 31% on that line item. We're going to be lowering our IT budget 11% from 15.6 million to 13.9 million, and that's going to be adding an additional $1.7 million that can be reallocated back to the repayment of our debt holders. And lastly, we are going to be lowering our percentage of revenue spend from 4.2% total revenue to 3.8% revenue, which is more in line with AT standards and is moving in the correct direction. Lastly, on my notes and assumptions, you'll see the assumptions here. There also is an embedded Excel worksheet where you can find all of my calculations and how I came up with my new numbers. I want to thank you for watching my presentation. Have a great evening.